Hello and welcome to another episode of I Want to Cook. We're going to call today's episode part of our No Shame series because you shouldn't have any shame if you don't know how to cook something. So today I'm going to show you how to brown ground meat. And the inspiration comes from years ago. I was doing an in-home cooking lesson for a bachelor, and he was about, 40 years old, and we were going to make a basic bolognese pasta sauce. And I said, okay, the first thing we're gonna do is brown some meat. And he just kind of looked at me and said, what does that mean? He had never browned meat before, and that's okay. So maybe if you're in that position where you're trying to make some homemade taco meat, or like I say, a bolognese sauce, and it requires browning meat, which is really a basic cooking technique, but you don't know how to do that, that's okay. It's very, very easy, and once you learn how to do it, you'll just be amazed at how easy it is and how versatile it is. So here's how to make browned ground meat. So today we're going to be working with some ground chicken that I bought, but when you're browning ground meat, it really can be any type of meat. It could be, this is some ground beef. I had this in the freezer. You could work with ground turkey, but the concept is the same. So no matter if you're working with ground beef, ground pork, ground chicken, ground turkey, this same methodology is going to apply. As for what kind of pan to use, here again, you probably already have what you need in your kitchen. The easiest is just a basic pan. This is just a 12-inch heavy pan. This is a Calphalon anodized aluminum, but you can use just about anything. You could use stainless steel, you could use cast iron if you have it. What I do recommend is using something that is heavier and thus more durable. But if all you have is a large pot, that's fine too, just as long as it's got a nice kind of thick base, heavy. So it only takes about 10 or 15 minutes to make ground meat, and then of course from there you can season it however you want. If you want something spicy, you do spicy. If you want it to be a component for a sauce, like a pasta sauce, whatever you want. Again, it's really versatile, really quick. So we are going to today make some ground chicken. And one thing to know about when you're making ground meat is whether you need oil in the pan or not. Well, that depends on what you're cooking. So if you're cooking a fattier meat like ground beef, you usually don't even really need much or any oil in the pan. Now, for something like ground chicken, which is really lean and you don't want it sticking to your pan, then yeah, absolutely. So what we're gonna do is use just about a tablespoon of oil and kind of get that nice and warm before putting our meat in. So you ready? I'm gonna demo how to make ground meat. Okay, let's turn this ground chicken into a lovely cooked ground chicken, browned ground chicken. So the first thing we're gonna do is I'm going to heat this pan over about medium high. And like I say, we're going to be using a little bit of oil because with something this lean, it would otherwise stick to the pan. So I've just got some basic vegetable oil here. This is canola. You can use anything you have on hand. You don't have to be exact. With ground meat, it can be your own symphony. Make it however you want, use as much or as little ingredients. So I'm just gonna do maybe we'll say about a tablespoon of oil here. And we'll let this heat for, we'll say 30 to 60 seconds. And what you want is you just want the oil to basically coat the bottom of the pan. So that's gonna help prevent it from sticking. And you just want to let this warm up for, like I say, about 30 to 60 seconds. You don't want it to get too crazy hot. And don't worry if you think you're putting the meat in too early. There's really no way to mess this up. Okay, so our oil is nice and hot. Now we are going to dump in our ground chicken. And when you put the meat into the pan, you're just going to kind of want to break it up. I've got a spatula here. And just kind of break it up like this. We're going to keep the meat over about medium high. And for now, that's all you need to do. Just let this cook for about a minute or two. It's going to start to get hot. And remember, since we're working with raw meat, we are going to wash our hands and clean our cutting board. Hear that sizzle? That's exactly what you want. It's been about a minute, and we're just going to kind of shuffle this around. Now, if you were making, again, let's say some taco meat, you could add other ingredients. You could add onions, you could add seasoning. Since we're doing just a real plain ground meat here, I'm just going to add a little bit of salt and some fresh cracked pepper. And all that's going to do is just give it a very basic seasoning, and then you can always tailor it afterward. Now, if we were cooking a real fatty beef, you would be getting a lot of grease toward the end of the cooking. Since we're cooking chicken, it's very lean, so there's really not much fat on there, so we don't have to worry about draining. That's another reason I like working with poultry. But if you're doing ground beef and you don't want it to be really greasy, then yeah, you would probably want to drain. And for something like that, you would just take your pan, and if you have a like a splatter screen or a small strainer, you would just kind of tip it and get that grease out of the pan. I usually put it into a different bowl and let it cool, and then usually throw it away. I don't like to put grease down the drain. So see, this is coming along really nicely. It's only been a couple minutes, and our chicken is starting to brown. Now, I say brown, it's not going to turn brown necessarily. That's just the term. So what that means is it's going to get darker and get cooked. When you're browning beef, it will take on more of a brown color, but poultry is a little bit different. So it hasn't even been 5 minutes, and this meat is looking really, really good. So when you're browning meat, what happens is it really even changes the look and the texture of the meat. So it goes from being kind of spongy to nice and firm. See, this is coming together really, really good. When you're browning meat, just kind of break it into small chunks like this. And this is also going to help you let you know when it's done, because you're not going to see any of that opaqueness. Okay, but how do you know when it's really done? Well, to be certain, you use one of these, a thermometer. This is just a food thermometer. And what you're going to want is for it to reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when you know your meat is going to be done. So if you ever have any doubt, just kind of stick the thermometer in. And again, what you're looking for is 165 degrees. Now again, this only took a few minutes to cook. And here now I have a lovely pan of ground meat, in this case ground chicken. And again, if I were wanting to make a pasta sauce, I could put in some tomato sauce, some seasonings, and this would be a wonderful base for a nice a bolognese type sauce. So there you go. We just made a big pan of ground chicken in less than 10 minutes. Now, ground beef might take a little bit longer, ground pork might take a little bit longer, but still you're looking at 10, maybe 15 minutes. Now, if you're just kind of getting new to this, I would encourage you to get a food thermometer just to make absolutely sure that everything is done. Again, you'd be looking for 165 degrees Fahrenheit, and then once you hit that mark, you are good to go. So while you'll get the most flavor if you season it while it's cooking, let's say, again, use our example of a Spanish or an Italian dish, you can still season this for your needs. Right here, we just have a basic plate of ground chicken. So Refrigerate this when you're done. It should hold for several days, and you can also freeze it as well. But that is how easy and how quick and how inexpensive it is to make browned ground meat. So I hope you found this video informative and helpful. If you did, please give it a like and please subscribe to this channel. Okay, is there anything that you want to learn how to cook, but you're too embarrassed to admit that you don't know how? That's okay. Put it in the comments below or send me a message. Let me know and maybe I'll demo it on the next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on I Want to Cook.